Are you single, dating, or thinking about dating and wondering how to find the right partner for you? Well, I have some information today that may be able to assist you in finding the right partner when we talk about attachment styles. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Rhonda Brown, registered nurse, counselor, marriage and family therapist, and relationship coach. And welcome to the Art of Connection Therapy channel, where we talk about, you must have guessed it, connection. Connection to God, connection to ourselves, and connection to others, so that we can begin to move toward having the kinds of relationships we were created to have. In part one of this series, we talked about getting an awareness of the different attachment styles and what can happen with an anxious attachment style against with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. Now in part two, we're going to be talking about what you can do to work with your own attachment style. Stay tuned. So for the person who has the anxious attachment style, what can I do? I just recognize that may be me. Well, there are some things that you can do if you notice that you lean more toward the anxious attachment style. First thing that you want to do is to accept who you are. Accept that you have a great need and a great capacity for emotional intimacy. That is not a bad thing. That's just something that you need to be aware of, so that when you are in relationships or starting relationships, you are looking, listening to see if the other person shows that they also have a great capacity for emotional closeness. The second thing you want to be mindful of, if you see that you kind of lean more toward the anxious style of attachment, is when you are in relationships, if you find that the relationship is kind of like a roller coaster, like maybe 1 minute the other person seems like they're close emotionally, the next minute they're kind of pushing away and back and forth, and it's kind of a roller coaster and up and down, that may be a red flag that maybe your partner is not as comfortable with the emotional closeness that you need. Again, it's not something bad. It's not about what's good and what isn't good. It's not so much about that. It's more about who you are and who would best help you fit your emotional needs, and who you would also be able to give love to and to be able to meet their emotional needs. So if you find that there's a roller coaster going on of emotions where you feel like 1 minute they're close, 1 minute they're not, that is a red flag. Again, that's not something that you just want to leave the person over and just dump the person over, but you want to continue to observe and maybe have conversations about it, because then that may mean that you're with someone who doesn't have a similar emotional capacity or need as you do. Also know that as humans, we tend to seek subconsciously, again, the kinds of love that we are familiar with. So in my previous video, I talked about how our attachment styles develop. So for the person who's now has the anxious attachment style, they usually, as they were growing up, had where their emotional needs were met sometimes. So there was an inconsistency in their emotional needs being met, which caused them to become anxious in a sense and start to be preoccupied. And so what may happen when you grow up is that you look for that same kind of love, or you may have multiple people that come your way, but you tend to stick with or stay with the person that gives you that same up and down feeling that you're used to. And that may not be the healthiest choice for you, because that may not mean that long term you will be happy in this relationship emotionally. Because again, what you're looking for is that emotional stability, because that emotional stability means that you won't be preoccupied. And you won't be preoccupied because you feel loved. So if you find that you lean more toward the avoidant style of attachment, there are some things you can do as well. First thing is awareness. It's always about awareness, right? We can't do anything until we realize what is going on. And now when we're talking about awareness, I'm talking about self-awareness. So if this resonates with you and you're like, oh, maybe I show a little bit of this, maybe not perfectly, but I do have a lot of these tendencies and I do see this kind of pattern in my relationship. What you can do is to seek help. Because a lot of times there's a reason why you do what you do. The reason why you shut off emotion, the reason why you remain emotionally distant or closed off is because there may have been times where you've experienced that your emotional needs weren't met when you needed them to be met. So seeking help so that someone can help you to understand and make sense of why you do what you do, and then be able to give you action steps to move you closer toward being more secure and increasing your capacity for that emotional closeness. Again, not being as far out as the anxious person is, or the anxious person with that style of attachment. You don't have to be that way. But you do want to be in touch with who you are, because you have emotional needs as met and you also matter. So you want to seek professional help so someone can help you to walk through those steps to give you a greater sense of self-awareness and to help you to move more towards security so that you can have your needs met and also be able to meet and respond to the needs of the others who are the most important to you. And another thing you can do is start to read books and maybe do some research on different attachment styles and different strategies that you can use to be able to help you to respond to others' needs and also to share your own needs as well. Now, if you recall from my last video, we also have the secure style of attachment. And those who have the secure styles of attachment are able to, number one, state their needs, communicate their needs to others, as well as respond to the needs of others who are important to them. However, just because you're secure doesn't mean that you can't fall into some of the other traps. When you are dating or seeking a mate or a spouse, you can end up falling into those things as well. So some of the traps you want to kind of keep your eye out for, even if you are secure in your attachment style, is that if you notice in your relationship that you are getting irritated or agitated a lot because you feel that your partner's needs and how they're trying to communicate to you are very demanding or too much or overwhelming, that may be a sign that you are with someone who has an anxious style of attachment. So again, doesn't mean that you need to leave this person or just end the relationship, but it is something that you want to be aware of if you're dating, and ask yourself the question, do I want to spend the rest of my life with this person? When I hear their needs and I'm able to respond to them, is that enough for them, or is it that they need more? Am I able to provide what they need? And if not, then maybe communicating that to them, also having that conversation with them, because what tends to happen when you have someone who has an anxious style of attachment that comes in contact or starts to have an intimate relationship with the secure, usually when the secure responds to the needs of the person who has an anxious style, that tends to calm calms their anxiety down. Because remember, the person with the anxious style of attachment is looking for their needs to be met, and they don't feel like their needs are being met. The secure person can usually respond to their needs of the anxious style of attachment, and once they respond to them, then everything is okay and they're able to respond to each other because they both have the capacity for that emotional closeness. So again, just something to be aware of. If you are secure and you're dating someone who's anxious, or if you're anxious and dating someone who's secure, you can still fall into those patterns. However, what typically happens when you have an anxious and a secure is that their relationship tends to be okay. Now, if you are secure and you're in a relationship and you find that all of a sudden you're having difficulty expressing your needs, Because maybe when you express your needs, they're not being attended to, they're kind of dismissed. And so you find that now you're reluctant or apprehensive in expressing your needs. That may be a sign that you are with someone who has an avoidance style of attachment. Again, doesn't mean that you need to leave. Again, you're looking for patterns of behavior and making that determination to say, should I spend the rest of my life with this person or maybe not? If you're seeing that you're falling into also, shutting down your own emotions, that may be something to pay attention to. And you want to be able to have a conversation, use your skills that you typically use to be able to communicate your needs. How, again, the person responds to when you are assertive, not aggressive, when you're assertive with your needs tells you a lot. And you want to ask yourself the question, should I spend the rest of my life? Is this a relationship worth investing in? If I tend to share my emotional needs, and I have no problem with that, and now I'm having a problem sharing these things because they're not being addressed or attended to or heard or responded to. So that is something that you want to take into consideration and see if you want to continue the relationship with someone who is not taking into account what you need and what is important for you. And also, if you can't get a sense of what they need and you're trying to express and say, listen, I'm here for you. I want us to be able to be emotionally close. I don't feel like you're with me. I don't feel like you're coming to the table. And the person still responds by keeping their distance emotionally. That is something that you want to take into consideration as far as choosing a lifelong partner. If you find any of this information helpful, you can do 3 things. You can like and subscribe this channel. You can also hit the notification bell so that when I post new videos, you'll be alerted. And you can also check out my website at www.theartofconnectiontherapy.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time. And remember, connection is an art worth making.